All right. So thank you all for tuning in on YouTube and everybody who is there in person. This is Women Who Code Boulder, Denver's monthly JavaScript series. And tonight we will be hearing from Kim, who will be sharing about web accessibility, inclusivity, and why you should care. And I first met Kim a few months ago, I think, through Hack Reactor and Galvanize, and I was just blown away by her passion for this subject and for software in general. And Kim is a full stack engineer with an affinity for the front end, powered by JavaScript. She believes programming provides one of the greatest opportunities to connect with people, whether it be development teams collaborating behind the scenes or the users interacting with the tech. She imagines a world where we use our engineering superpowers while working together to create experiences and link infinite resources to infinite people. That is just such a great bio, and I loved reading it, and I'm super excited to hear you share. So when you are ready, take it away.
All right, let's see. Here we are. Okay, so let me just make this. Awesome, welcome to my lightning talk on web accessibility and inclusivity. I'm your host, Kim, and I just have, let's see, a little table of contents, why you should care, a high level about why you should care about accessibility, some guidelines that are outlined, semantic HTML, color palette, and inclusivity for all. So to get us kicked off, why care? Why care about accessibility? Why I just want to hack into the mainframe. I want to do what I want to do. I have all these kind of creative things flowing. Like I don't need to be put into a box. There are many reasons why you should care about accessibility. It is a civil right and it's a moral issue. There were acts passed to protect the civil rights of people with disabilities and prevent discrimination, like Title III of the ADA, prohibiting discrimination on the basis of disability in public businesses, such as recreational facilities and restaurants. Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act requires that federal agencies have their electronic and information technology accessible to people with disabilities, whether it be employees or members of the public. Also, for a more personal reason, one might be asked accessibility questions in interviews, or you might be the workplace team member that is the go-to person. A lot of companies, a lot of larger companies are considering, should there be a dedicated in-house role? Companies might be interested in finding their champion to inspire them and lead them through change and support them through any pitfalls, which leads into potential pitfalls, meaning like a lawsuit, whether or not it's for interpersonal reasons. There are extraneous reasons like lawsuits. Just for some perspective, in 2017, there were 814 lawsuits. And a year later, in 2018, there were over 2,300 lawsuits regarding accessibility. And so that is a 177% increase. It is not going away. Accessibility is an issue that, or is something that will need to be continued to be supported and grown. And aside from all of those things also, bottom dollar, business gains, 1 in 4 adults in the US has a disability and about 1 billion people worldwide. Imagine including even a percentage of those folks. Imagine making space for 25% more people to reach your site or your technology. And additionally, search engine optimization. Semantic markup helps us reach more people. Google uses an algorithm that inspects our code. It analyzes the markup and labels to better understand the purpose and layout of our pages. Google ranks websites with accessibility techniques better in an organic search. So similarly to people with some disabilities, search engine crawlers only use a keyboard and they can't see or hear. So whether it be because your heart says it's the right thing, or your dollar says it's the right thing, or you're getting sued, or you want to level up, there's so many reasons why one could consider accessibility at the forefront of their mind and in their design. There are, so too often, the onus is on the user to find a plugin to support their needs. What if frameworks were created with more accessibility baked in? Imagine telling a person with a wheelchair that their chair should be more stair accessible. That's sort of what we're doing when we're saying, oh, find a plugin, find support. Here's an afterthought, here's a layer that we'll throw on top of it to kind of, close in the gaps. In the meantime, we have the WCAG, which has accessibility guidelines, and it sorts their guidelines into perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. There are different levels of compliance: level A, which is minimal, level AA, and AAA. One could experience a permanent disability or a permanent setback, like having one arm, or you could have a temporary disability, having an arm injury, or a situational experience where you're holding a child. So accessibility helps people in all different perspectives. And one might consider how it can impact someone using a small screen like a phone or a watch, or people going through changes in abilities due to aging. We all age, we all go through different phases of our life. My eyes are going. So consider people with like a broken leg or vertigo, how they might interact with the world. And that could be just temporary. There are also situational limitations, such as too low or too bright of a light or a noisy environment. So we've got visual, auditory, speech, physical, learning, cognitive, neurological disabilities. There are many different types. I remember in school, I feel like we were just kind of touched on like, closed captionings or maybe screen readers. There's just such a breadth of opportunity for one to explore accessibility. So for visual, it might be having your text resized without assistive technology, so that a user can make the screen larger, make the text larger, without having to kind of scroll around the site. Something that I learned later down my experience, down my learning, is that the WCAG recommends using EM units to define font size. And it accommodates different body and screen sizes. So it's a relative unit. I have often used pixels, but I have transitioned to EM and percentage, which is just using, which is more accommodating for different screen sizes. One might consider captions or subtitles, or a transcript, which is a separate text version of the audio, or just a simple audio description of visual information, which is additional information. Text-to-speech can benefit people with dyslexia, with reading difficulties, or for people who like to multitask. So accessibility really is for everyone. Physical considerations might be an ergonomic keyboard or mouse, on-screen keyboard with trackball, joysticks, or other pointing devices, voice recognition, eye tracking, and other approaches for hands-free interaction, and websites that provide full keyboard support. And many folks have such a varying ability of perception, memory, attention, such a wide range of cognitive abilities, and folks that can interact with our tech, the things that we're designing and creating. We can include people in those areas. Consider if there is a sufficient amount of time to complete a task, such as filling out an online form. Using familiar symbols and expressions and design patterns so the user doesn't have to learn something new. For example, folks may know the standard convention for hyperlinks of being underlined and blue for unvisited and purple for visited. These are things that people don't have to often relearn. And navigating a system should be easy. The layout should be clear and easy to follow with good visual cues and symbols. Moving, blinking, or flickering content and background audio that cannot be turned off can be very problematic for some people. Web browsers and media players should not autoplay animations and audio. They could make some folks sick or overstimulated, and it can be very problematic. So offer tools to turn them off or to turn them down. And certainly I would not start something autoplaying. Some of these tips are essential for some, but they're really useful for everyone. Let's see, hopping into HTML. Let's see. We have to code and design for all users. There's a considerable amount of users that depend on screen reader software and only navigate the internet through a keyboard. Semantic HTML is not only about using semantic tags, but about using the correct tags for each element, so it is easy to navigate for all users. A small example would be that a button does something and that a link goes somewhere. So just because you can do something different with each tag doesn't mean that you should. Screen readers handle links and buttons differently, like with tabbable and keyboard functions. All links and buttons are tabbable, but they each handle the space key and enter triggering different things differently. Something that I was creating one time with a group of mine with some colleagues was we were creating a website, and we really did not love the terrible outline on our buttons. We just thought they're really ugly. Come to find out that they're very important, and to never use outline none in your CSS. Users who need to navigate the web using their keyboard are entirely lost when you remove your element's focus outline. That was a rookie mistake on my part. So try implementing the outline none hack, and then try to tab through your page and get to the element that you want to select. And back to underlining your links. Underlining your links is a simple increase in user experience. Another thing that I have certainly been guilty of, and I have many friends and colleagues as well who fall into this category, is using divs and spans everywhere. The spray of the div. They're meaningless, and they don't have keyboard or touch support, and they don't communicate anything to the accessibility API. So since learning that, I have changed my div heavy waves. We do have access to ARIA, which is Accessible Rich Internet Applications. It is a set of attributes that define ways to make web content and applications more accessible. One of the golden rules about ARIA is to try to not use it. If you must use different HTML, a different element to do the same functionality as a button, use the ARIA role or attribute button to let the screen reader know that the area is clickable. And I was just food for thought. How many HTML tags can you think of? Can you come up to at the top of your head? I was kind of scrolling through. I feel like I could quickly rattle off 10, 20, and then I really screech to a halt. I have an accessibility cheat sheet that I can share with you all, but there's like 100 or 105 in HTML5. There are plenty, so it's certainly worth refamiliarizing yourself with them. And another thing that let's see, did I slip that on there? Is CSS classes. Just a footnote in classes. Good class names are like notes and for supporting other developers on your team. You want to have maintainability labels and notes for other programmers. So less on the accessibility side, but more on the clean code and just being a considerate teammate for somebody who might inherit or work on your project with you. You want to use values that describe the nature of the content rather than describing a desired presentation of the content. For example, you might not want to label something like red or red button if down the line it ends up being blue or whatever. You want to have kind of separation of concerns. You don't want to have to change something and have it, have this a long effect beyond that. And then when it comes to choosing a color palette in your design, make sure that colors aren't your only method of conveying important information. Consider using textures or patterns. For example, a trail map could use a dotted and dashed line and other pattern lines instead of purely relying on color. Contrast ratios range from 1:1, no difference, to 21:1, which is the highest difference. And a solid rule of thumb is to not use gray on gray. And I would say level AA is the minimum standard. And the ratio depends on the size of your text or of your area. A small text, the ratio should be 4.5 to 1 or higher. And for a large text, it could be 3.1 or 3 to 1 or higher. And the higher your level goes up, like level AAA, the enhanced standard is different. I have a little, let's see, this here. I'm not sure if you all can see this, but it just gives a little bit. I have this on my cheat sheet as well. I just thought it was a good representation of the difference in the contrast in some photos. Then as far as color blindness, red and green are often indistinguishable for red-green color blindness. And for blue-yellow, it makes it hard to tell the difference between blue and green or between yellow and red. There's also complete color blindness, which means one can't see colors at all. Keep in mind, various types of computers and devices have different levels of resolution and brightness that are accessing your website. Easier to read means easier for everyone. Like I said, that whole eye thing that's happening to me, I don't know, I'm 30. Aside from accessibility in tech, I think inclusion is such a near and dear topic to my heart. And I am going to preface this with saying, I am just one voice. I am just one perspective. I know that I am a Hispanic, queer, cis woman. I know the world that I live in, and I know what I've experienced. But I'm just going to touch on some things, and things are always changing and growing, and I want to kind of create space for that thought as well. But just to get the wheels turning, design for diversity. Something that is starting to happen in tech, which I am so grateful for, is addressing offensive and oppressive terms. I don't know that I would have been confident stepping into this career as a software engineer 10 years ago. I don't know that I would have felt like I had the capacity to spread my wings and take up space. I'm just learning how to now. So fortunately, some companies are starting to catch on. Large companies like GitHub are finally dropping terms like master and slave and replacing them with main, default, primary, secondary. And I consider challenging terms like whitelist and blacklist, and consider allow list and deny list. Many misrepresented communities have been defined by dominant culture and have not had the opportunity to define themselves on their own terms. And because of this, they are often falsely or scarcely represented. Have a diverse team. Consider whose voice may be left out of your design. Consider how your identities might influence how you approach a project. Is it a collaborative experience? Can everybody add something to it? Who is not at the table with you? When creating content, say creating a story or a cartoon, do Black and brown characters take a main role? Do they have blue eyes or lighter skin? Try to avoid assuming what knowledge the reader might have, and be wary of cultural metaphors. What might be a common phrase in one region might totally alienate another user. It's like just the tip of the iceberg, I swear. I feel like one could dedicate their entire life to all of these topics, and I'm doing my best to support everyone here. I also call you in to create experiences that welcome folks in. Focus on diversity and inclusion on all walks of life, embracing size, shape, race, disability, age, gender, sexuality, ethnicity, education levels, income, spoken languages, culture, everything that Women Who Code and that Jen prefaced this experience with. It just like makes my heart skip a beat when we have that and are including everyone. Inclusivity is about designing for a varied range of people. Consider how different experiences shape the way that we interact with the world. 1 in 250 people in the US, this might be an aged number, it might be different. Now I do have resources in my cheat sheet. 1 in 250 people in the US identifies as transgender or gender non-binary. So something that I might consider is, are you asking for gender when it is not needed? Or are you limiting the gender options a user can select? Are you assuming things about users based on their gender? So that might go along with like forms and surveys. Diverse stock imagery. I have resources for diverse stock imagery if you're interested in it. It is in my cheat sheet as well. I've got plenty of fun little resources in there, but including people that fit into that, that long list that I shared, and that Women Who Code, what we believe in here is like just representing people from all walks of life. Names and pronouns are very important. People might update their name after a change in marital status, a family, personal situation, gender, or perhaps someone is known by a nickname or a westernized name. In most local places, legally changing a name is very difficult, expensive, requires medical documentation, or is just simply out of the question. We can design systems that protect the life and privacy of our users and act as an electronic curb cut. A curb cut, we've all experienced them walking down the sidewalk and the curb is cut and we can not trip. I wear a lot of bell bottoms, I trip over my own 2 feet all the time. A dropped curb helps everyone in the process. And design for name change. Designing Airbnb, for example, has procedures for users who have transitioned, allowing users to keep their history with their amended names or pronouns. I think I'm a really nice Airbnb guest, and I would be heartbroken if I didn't have the opportunity to take my history with me. We're just humans, we can do these things. Are you legally required to request someone's legal name? Clarify when you need a legal name. Allow people to use the names they go by versus their legal first name, and allow users to change their usernames or their profile URLs. Something that I'm just going to bring up is dead naming. Calling someone by their old name after they've changed their name is often done to transgender people, and it is often very hurtful and done often to spite somebody. And Twitter has stepped up and banned dead naming. Consider your own code of conduct around any of these areas. Are we trying to affirm or exclude? Are we trying to elevate or irritate? Are we trying to support? Are we trying to harm? Something that I've been considering in my personal life is community outreach and volunteering. I know, again, my lived experience in my past and where my family comes from and the community that I am a part of. But that falls short. I don't have as wide of a perspective. I'm just one person with one community in Boulder, Colorado. Volunteering can expose you to different people with different backgrounds and different challenges. And it might make one more empathetic. How can I design this world? How can I level the playing field for this person that I met? How can I be supportive in that way? And language, definitions, and concepts change quickly. This is no excuse to keep from trying. And that's the end of my talk. This is my contact information. Thank you for coming. Like I said, I do have this right here. I have a little Google Doc that I can share. I have some, this large list of HTML, gender inclusive, kind of considerate nouns to use, and all kinds of good information out here. So that's it. Thank you.